6 months after the Battle of Kepler 442, New Jeju looked very different. Where the school had once stood, a beautiful memorial garden now grew. 400 small trees had been planted, one for each child who died. At the center stood a statue of Doyun, arms spread wide as if protecting the younger children behind him. Captain Jiwoo walked through the garden every morning. The names of all the children were carved into black stone that would never weather or fade. At the base of Doyun's statue were the boy's final words spoken as he tried to shield his friends. "We just wanted to learn about the stars." "Good morning, Captain," called Dr. Huna as she approached with a small group of visitors. These weren't tourists. They were alien ambassadors who came to see the memorial and understand why humanity had reacted so violently to the attack. "Ambassador Kelnoth." Jiwoo nodded to the former Corvani strategist. After the battle, Kelnoth had surrendered himself and asked to serve as a witness to what his people had done. He now worked as humanity's first alien ambassador, helping other species understand the new reality. "The delegation from the Andromedan Republic has arrived," Kelnoth said quietly. "They wish to pay their respects before the treaty signing." 3 tall blue-skinned aliens approached the memorial with obvious nervousness. Their leader, Ambassador Kethra, carried a wreath of flowers from her homeworld. "We come to honor the innocent lives lost here," she said, placing the wreath at the base of Doyun's statue. "Our children learn about what happened on New Jeju in school now. We teach them that some things should never be done, no matter the reason." Jiwoo appreciated the gesture, but his expression remained hard. "Your government supported the Corvani hegemony right up until they saw our fleet arrive." "That was a mistake," Kethra admitted. "We thought the hegemony was too powerful to oppose. We didn't understand what humans were truly capable of." "And now you do? Now we know that humans are the strongest species in the galaxy. But more than that, we know you use that strength to protect the innocent. That's why we want to be your allies." The treaty signing took place in the rebuilt colony center. Representatives from 47 different species had come to formalize new relationships with humanity. Some, like the Andromedans, were seeking protection. Others were offering tribute in hopes of avoiding humanity's anger. Fleet Admiral Song Yunbi had come from Earth for the ceremony. She stood before the assembled diplomats, wearing a simple uniform that couldn't hide the power she represented. "For 200 years," she said, "humanity chose to appear weak because we believed that peace was better than war. We traded with you, shared our culture, and asked for nothing but to be left alone." The alien ambassadors listened in respectful silence. "The Corvani hegemony chose to see our peaceful nature as weakness. They murdered our children to prove their superiority. That was their final mistake." Yunbi activated a holographic display showing the current state of galactic politics. Where the Corvani Empire had once controlled a third of the galaxy, there was now empty space. "The hegemony no longer exists as a political entity," she continued. "Their military has been destroyed, their leadership captured, and their territory is now under human administration. This is what happens when someone threatens our young." Ambassador Vorthik of the Zelkan Empire raised a trembling hand. "Admiral, what are your intentions toward the rest of us?" "The same as they've always been," Yunbi replied. "Peace, trade, and mutual respect, but with one addition. Anyone who harms human civilians, especially children, will face the full might of our military. There will be no negotiations, no mercy, and no survivors." The treaty that was signed that day became known as the New Jeju Accords. It established humanity as the galaxy's protective power, with the responsibility to safeguard innocent life across all species. In the former Corvani territory, human fleets were helping former slaves rebuild their worlds. The hegemony had conquered dozens of peaceful species over the millennia. Now they were free, protected by humanity's promise that no one would be allowed to oppress them again. On one such world, the Moran system, Captain Nam Sujin watched as human engineers helped the locals restore their cities. The Morans were a gentle species of artists and philosophers who had suffered under Corvani rule for 500 years. "Captain," said the Moran elder Veltani, "why do you help us? What do you gain?" We gain the knowledge that children like those on New Jeju will never be hurt again, Sujin replied. That's enough. Back on New Jeju, the trial of Admiral Vextar was ending. The colonists had chosen to handle justice themselves rather than turn him over to Earth authorities. The trial had been fair but thorough, documenting every aspect of the attack on the school. Vextar stood in chains before the survivors of his attack. His arrogance was gone, replaced by the hollow look of someone who finally understood the magnitude of his crime. You killed children, said Mrs. Kim, Doyen's mother. Her voice was steady, but tears ran down her face. Innocent children who had never harmed anyone. I was following the traditions of the hegemony, Vextar replied weakly. The strong rule, the weak, it has always been so. Not anymore, said Captain Jiwoo. The sentence of this court is life imprisonment. You will spend the rest of your days helping to rebuild what you destroyed. Every day you will see the memorial to the children you killed, and every day you will remember that your actions brought about the end of your empire. Vextar was led away to begin his sentence. He would work in the memorial garden, tending the trees that grew in memory of his victims. In the months that followed, other aggressive species tested humanity's resolve. The Gorthani raiders attacked a human research station, killing 12 scientists. 3 days later, their entire fleet had vanished without a trace. The Vazek Empire attempted to conquer a human colony. Their homeworld was quarantined by human ships that made it clear they would never leave. The message was always the same: harm humans, especially innocents, and face extinction. But humanity's new role wasn't just about punishment. They also became protectors. When the peaceful Cathari were threatened by slavers, human ships appeared to drive off the attackers. When the Yandere faced a natural disaster, human relief ships arrived with supplies and medical aid. Dr. Lim Tae-hyun, the director of humanity's classified projects, found himself in the strange position of sharing technology with former enemies. But only technology that could help, not harm. We're giving them medical scanners that can detect diseases we've never seen, he told Admiral Yunbi during one of their regular meetings. Terraforming equipment that can restore dead worlds, agricultural tools that can end hunger, but not weapons. Never weapons. Let them think we're generous and peaceful. It's better if they don't know what we're really capable of. The deception continued, but in reverse. Now humanity hid their kindness behind a reputation for ruthless efficiency. The galaxy believed humans were cold, calculating warriors who showed no mercy to their enemies. In reality, they were the same species they had always been, protective of their young, loyal to their friends, and determined to build a better future. They had simply learned to make their enemies fear the consequences of attacking innocent life. On Earth, children learned about the Battle of New Jeju in their history classes. They learned about Doyun and his sacrifice, about teacher Mina's bravery, and about the importance of protecting those who couldn't protect themselves. Why did the aliens attack the school? Asked a young student. Because they thought hurting children would make us weak, replied her teacher. They didn't understand that hurting our children would make us stronger than they could imagine. 5 years after the attack, New Jeju had become the unofficial capital of the galaxy. Alien ambassadors came there to learn about humanity and to pay their respects to the children who had died. The memorial garden was never empty. There were always visitors leaving flowers or simply standing in quiet contemplation. Dr. Hyuna, now the planet's administrator, often found alien children among the visitors. They would ask their parents why the statue showed a human boy protecting other children. Because, the parents would explain, that's what humans do. They protect the innocent, no matter the cost. The crystal network that had awakened during the attack was now humanity's early warning system. Any threat to human civilians would trigger an instant response from the nearest fleet. The network connected every human world, ensuring that no colony would ever face danger alone. Captain Jiwoo, now Admiral Jiwoo, stood in the memorial garden on the 5th anniversary of the attack. Representatives from every major species in the galaxy had come to remember the children and to reaffirm their commitment to protecting innocent life. They wanted to learn about the stars, he said, reading from Doyen's statue. Now children across the galaxy learn about them. about their bravery, their innocence, and their sacrifice. Ambassador Kelnoth approached him quietly. Admiral, do you think the boy would have wanted this? The fear that other species feel toward humanity? Jiwoo considered the question. I think Doyen would have wanted what we have now. A galaxy where children can learn and play without fear. If that requires others to fear us, then so be it. As the ceremony ended and the visitors departed, Jiwoo remained alone in the garden. The sun was setting, casting long shadows across the S. 3 weeks after the massacre at New Jeju, space around the Kepler 442 system began to ripple with strange energy. Admiral Vextar was in his command chamber when his sensors detected the first anomalies. Report, he commanded his bridge crew. Sir, called the sensor operator. We're detecting massive space-time distortions at the edge of the system. Something very large is coming out of hyperspace. How large? Sir, the energy signatures suggest multiple fleets, thousands of ships. Vextar stood up quickly. Impossible. Show me. The main display activated, showing the outer system. At first, there was nothing but empty space and distant stars. Then reality seemed to tear open and ships began pouring through. They weren't the crude metal boxes that Vextar expected. These ships were sleek and deadly, black as space itself and moving with impossible grace. More kept coming. Hundreds, then thousands, then tens of thousands. By the ancestors, whispered strategist Kelnoth. Where did they all come from, the Diu? Human fleet spread out across the system like a dark tide. At the center was a massive ship unlike anything the Corvani had ever seen. It was 20 kilometers long and seemed to bend light around itself. From that flagship came a transmission that reached every ship in both fleets. This is Captain Nam Soo-jin of the Earth Defense Ship Retribution. Admiral Vextar, you are hereby ordered to surrender yourself and your entire fleet immediately. Vextar activated his own transmitter. Captain, I am Admiral Vextar of the Corvani Hegemony. You are trespassing in our territory. Leave now, or be destroyed. Your territory? Soo-jin's voice was cold as ice. You murdered 400 human children. This system now belongs to us. You have 30 seconds to surrender before we open fire. You dare threaten the hegemony? We have 3,000 ships. Your primitive weapons cannot harm us. 20 seconds. Vextar looked at his tactical display. The human fleet was massive, but the Corvani ships were larger and more heavily armed. Or so he thought. 10 seconds. All ships, Vextar commanded. Prepare for battle. Show these mammals their place. Time's up, Soo-jin said. What happened next changed the course of galactic history. The human ships didn't fire energy beams or missiles. Instead, they seemed to simply think, and reality responded. Space itself became a weapon. Gravity wells opened inside Corvani ships, crushing them from within. Time fields slowed enemy vessels while human ships moved at normal speed. Matter converters turned hull metal into plasma, causing ships to dissolve like ice in hot water. The battle lasted 4 hours. When it ended, the entire Corvani fleet was gone. Not destroyed. Gone. Some ships had been disintegrated at the molecular level. Others had been compressed into micro-black holes. A few had simply been erased from existence. Of the 3,000 Corvani vessels, only one remained. Vextar's flagship, held motionless by a human tractor beam that he couldn't break. Impossible, Vextar whispered, staring at the empty space, where his fleet had been. What are you? His answer came in the form of boarding pods that cut through his ship's hull like it was paper. Human soldiers poured into his flagship, wearing armor that seemed to be made of liquid metal. Their weapons could fire around corners and through solid walls. The Corvani crew tried to fight, but their energy rifles had no effect on the human armor. Within minutes, the entire ship was captured. Admiral Vextar found himself face to face with Captain Jiwoo, who had been rescued from New Jeju and given command of a strike team. The human's eyes burned with cold rage. You killed children, Jiwoo said simply. Innocent children who just wanted to learn about the stars. They were trespassing on sacred ground, Vextar replied, trying to maintain his dignity. No, Jiwoo said. They were home, and you murdered them. Strategist Kelnoth was brought before Captain Sujin on the Retribution's bridge. Unlike his admiral, he seemed to understand the magnitude of what had happened. How? He asked quietly. How did you hide such power? Our intelligence said you were primitive. We let you think we were primitive, Sujin replied. For 200 years, we've shown the galaxy only what we wanted them to see. Simple ships, basic weapons, peaceful intentions. It kept us safe from species like yours. But this technology, and it's impossible. Matter conversion, time manipulation, space folding, these are theoretical concepts. For you, maybe. We've had them for decades. Then why hide? Why not take your place as the dominant species? Sujin was quiet for a moment. Because we learned something from our own history. Power without wisdom leads to destruction. We chose to be peaceful until someone forced us to be otherwise. And now? Now you've seen what happens when humans go to war. The news of the battle spread across the galaxy at light speed. Every major civilization received the same message. The Corvani hegemony's entire fleet had been destroyed in 4 hours by a species they had dismissed as primitive. On the Zelkan homeworld, Emperor Kazarth watched the battle recordings in stunned silence. His military advisors were arguing about whether the footage was real. Impossible, said General Vorthak. Humans use chemical rockets and projectile weapons. This must be some kind of trick. No trick, whispered Kazarth. He remembered now why. The name human had seemed familiar. 50 years ago, the Zelkan Empire had encountered a small human trading post. They had demanded tribute. The humans had refused politely. 3 days later, every Zelkan military base in the sector had simply vanished. No explosions, no battles, no trace of what had happened. The official report blamed equipment failures, but now Kazarth understood the truth. The humans had been watching, waiting, and when pushed too far, they had acted with terrifying efficiency. On the Thrax homeworld, similar realizations were occurring. The Mordian Collective, the Vazek Empire, the Gorthani Raiders. All had encountered humans and suffered mysterious defeats that had been blamed on civil wars or accidents. But they hadn't been accidents. They had been warnings. Back in the Kepler 442 system, the human fleet was setting up orbital stations around New Jeju. The planet would be rebuilt, but it would also become something more. A monument to what happened when someone threatened human children. Dr. Hyuna, who had survived the attack by being in her underground lab, stood with Captain Jiwoo in the ruins of the school. A memorial was being built there, with the name of every child who had died carved in stone that would last forever. Do you think we did the right thing? She asked. We protected our own, Jiwoo replied. That's what humans do. But the galaxy will fear us now. Good. Maybe that will prevent this from happening again. High above them, Captain Sujin was dealing with representatives from a dozen alien civilizations who had come to offer tribute and alliance. They were all terrified, and they had good reason to be. Captain, said the Andromedan ambassador, our government wishes to establish a mutual defense treaty with humanity. Yesterday you wouldn't return our trade delegation's messages, Sujin replied coolly. That was a misunderstanding. We have always respected human sovereignty. Have you? Our records show you've been intercepting human cargo ships and demanding safe passage fees for the last 10 years. The ambassador's face went pale. Those were rogue elements. We had no knowledge. Save it, Sujin cut him off. From now on, any ship that threatens human vessels will simply disappear. Pass that message along to your government. But the most important message was being sent to Earth. Fleet Admiral Yunbi received a priority transmission from the battle zone. Ma'am, reported Captain Sujin, mission accomplished. Enemy fleet destroyed. Survivors captured. New Jeju is secure. Casualties? Minimal, ma'am. The enemy never got close enough to damage our ships. Good. What's the status of the alien admiral? Captain Jiwoo has requested permission to transfer him to New Jeju for trial. The colonists want justice for their children. Granted. Let the people who lost their families decide his fate. As the transmission ended, Yunbi looked out at Earth's blue oceans and white clouds. For 2 centuries, humanity had maintained peace through the threat of war. They had hoped never to reveal their true capabilities, but the aliens had forced their hand by attacking children, and now the entire galaxy knew the truth. Humans weren't the peaceful farmers they pretended to be. They were something far more dangerous. They were a species that would cross the galaxy to avenge their young, and they had the power to make good on that promise. Admiral Vextar, sitting in his cell on New Jeju, finally understood what strategist Kelnoth had tried to warn him about. The humans weren't just advanced. They were something new in the galaxy, a species that combined overwhelming military power with absolute moral conviction. He had started a war that he couldn't win, and now he would face the judgment of the people whose children he had murdered. The galaxy would never look at humanity the same way again. The signal from New Jeju reached Earth's capital in Geneva at exactly 14:23 local time. Fleet Admiral Song Yunbi was reviewing supply reports when the crystal network touched her mind. In an instant, she experienced everything. Doyun's terror, Mina's sacrifice, the flash of light that erased 400 innocent children. She stood up slowly, her face deadly calm. Around the conference table, every other military leader was having the same experience. Admiral Chen Weijiang's hands were shaking. General Sarah Martinez was staring at the wall with tears streaming down her face. "Ma'am," whispered her aide, Captain Nam Soo-jin. "Are you all right?" "Activate Protocol Omega," Yunbi said quietly. "Full implementation, no delays." The aide's face went white. "Ma'am, are you certain? Once we begin—" "They killed our children," Yunbi said, her voice cutting like a blade. "Do it now." Within seconds, emergency signals were racing across Earth's communication networks. In bunkers buried deep beneath mountains, automated systems began powering up for the first time in 50 years. Classified facilities that most humans didn't even know existed started humming with activity. Dr. Lim Tae-hyun was in his laboratory, beneath the Swiss Alps when the alert came through. For 20 years, he had been director of classified defense projects, working on weapons that the public would never see. Weapons that humanity had hoped never to use. "Sir," called his assistant, "we're receiving Omega authorization codes." "All of them?" Tae-hyun asked. "Yes, sir. Full release. No restrictions." Tae-hyun took a deep breath. He had always known this day might come, but he had hoped it wouldn't be in his lifetime. "Begin production immediately. I want every facility online within the hour." Across human space, the reaction was the same everywhere. On Mars, the massive shipyards that built civilian transport suddenly switched to a different blueprint. Ships began rolling off the assembly lines that looked nothing like anything humans had built before. On Titan, workers in the fusion plants received new orders. Instead of power for cities, they would be producing energy for weapon systems that could crack planets. In the asteroid belt, mining operations stopped extracting minerals for construction. Now they were gathering materials for warships. But the most dramatic change was on Earth itself. In facilities hidden beneath ordinary cities, machines that had been waiting in storage for decades began to move. These weren't human-built machines. They were technologies that humanity had been reverse engineering and improving for generations. Captain Nam Soo-jin stood in one such facility, watching as sleek black shapes emerged from underground hangars. These ships were beautiful and terrible, flowing like liquid metal but harder than any known substance. "How many do we have?" she asked the facility commander. 10,000 of these stealth destroyers," he replied, "plus 500 heavy battleships and 50 dreadnoughts." "And the enemy doesn't know about any of this?" "No one outside humanity knows about this. We've been very careful to hide our true capabilities." The commander was right. For 2 centuries, humanity had maintained a careful deception. They built crude chemical rockets and metal ships that looked primitive. They used simple weapons and basic technology in all their dealings with other species. But in secret, They had been preparing for war. The deception had begun when humans first encountered alien civilizations. They quickly realized that appearing weak was much safer than appearing strong. Aggressive species tended to attack strong neighbors but ignore weak ones. So humanity had built two civilizations. One was the public face, peaceful farmers and traders with simple technology. The other was hidden, a military machine capable of destroying entire star systems. Dr. Tae-hyun stood in his main laboratory, watching the production lines come to life. Weapons that bent space and time were being assembled by robotic workers. Ships that could travel faster than light without using hyperspace lanes rolled off assembly lines. "Sir," called one of his engineers, "the new matter converters are online. We can begin full production of exotic matter weapons." "What's our timeline for fleet deployment?" Tae-hyun asked. 12 hours for the first wave. 72 hours for full mobilization. Make it 6 hours for the first wave. Those aliens will pay for what they did. On Luna Base, the hidden shipyards were revealing their true purpose. For decades, they had appeared to build simple cargo haulers. In reality, they were constructing something much more dangerous. The ships emerging from Luna's underground factories were massive. Each one was 10 kilometers long and carried enough firepower to destroy a planet. But more importantly, they were fast. Incredibly fast. These ships could reach the Kepler 442 system in 3 weeks instead of 6 months. The aliens had no idea such technology existed. Meanwhile, across the galaxy, every human colony was mobilizing. The peaceful farmers and traders were revealing themselves to be something very different. On New Shanghai, an agricultural world that exported food across 3 star systems, the farm suddenly opened up to reveal missile silos. On New Seoul, a mining colony known for its quiet workers, the miners set down their tools and picked up weapons that could punch through starship armor. Every human in the galaxy had received the same message through the crystal network. Every human had felt Doyen's final moments, and every human was angry. But it wasn't just anger. It was something deeper and more primal. Humans had evolved as pack animals who protected their young at any cost. For millions of years, the survival of children had been humanity's highest priority. The aliens had attacked the one thing that could unite every human against them. On Earth, Fleet Admiral Yunbi stood before the Global Defense Council. Representatives from every nation were present, their faces grim. "The situation is clear," she said. "An alien force has murdered 400 human children in cold blood. They have declared war on humanity." "What do you recommend?" asked the Secretary General. "Total war," Yunbi replied without hesitation. "We mobilize everything, every ship, every weapon, every human capable of fighting. We end this threat permanently." "The political ramifications," began the representative from Europe. "There are no political ramifications," Yunbi cut him off. "They killed our children. Nothing else matters now." The vote was unanimous. For the first time in human history, every nation on Earth agreed on something completely. War. Within hours, the mobilization was visible from space. Ships that had been hidden in asteroid fields and gas giant clouds began moving toward Earth. Facilities that had appeared to be simple research stations revealed massive weapon arrays. The most shocking revelation was the true size of humanity's military. The public fleet numbered about 1,000 ships. The real fleet numbered 50,000. Captain Nam Soo-jin stood on the bridge of the EDS Retribution, one of the new dreadnoughts. Around her, 10,000 ships were forming up for the journey to Kepler 442b. But this was just the first wave. "Ma'am," reported her navigation officer, "all ships are ready for departure." "Any word from the alien fleet?" "Yes, ma'am. They're demanding that New Jeju surrender completely or face further bombardment." Soo-jin's jaw tightened. "Send them a message. Tell them that surrender is no longer an option. Tell them that humanity is coming, and we're bringing everything we have." On New Jeju, Captain Jiwoo received a priority transmission from Earth. It was Admiral Yunbi herself. "Captain," she said, "help is on the way. Hold out for 3 more weeks. Can you do that?" "We'll try, ma'am. But they have orbital superiority." We can't fight their ships. You don't have to fight them, Yunbi said with a cold smile. Just survive. Long enough for us to arrive. When we get there, there won't be anything left of their fleet. Admiral, what about the other alien civilizations? Won't they try to stop us? Let them try, Yunbi replied. We've been hiding our true strength for 200 years. It's time to show the galaxy what humans are really capable of. The transmission ended, leaving Jiwoo with a feeling of hope mixed with dread. Help was coming, but what would humanity become in the process? High above New Jeju, Admiral Vextar was reviewing his victory. The human colony was helpless before his fleet. Soon they would surrender, and the hegemony would claim their sacred artifacts. Strategist Kelnoth entered the command chamber with a concerned expression. Admiral, he said, our long-range sensors are detecting unusual activity in human space. What kind of activity? Massive fleet movements, sir. Ships are converging on Earth from across human territory. How many ships? Our best estimate is 40 to 50,000 vessels, sir. Vextar laughed. Impossible. The humans have barely 1,000 ships in their entire fleet. That's what we thought, sir. But the sensor readings don't lie. For the first time, Vextar felt a small doubt, but he pushed it away. Even if the humans had more ships than expected, they were still primitive. What could simple chemical rockets do against hegemony battle cruisers? He was about to learn that humans had been lying about their technology for a very long time. The 72 hours were almost over. Only 15,000 colonists had been evacuated from New Jeju. 35,000 remained, including nearly all the children who had been born on the planet. They simply had nowhere else to go. Captain. Jiwoo stood in the command center, watching the transport ships disappear into hyperspace. His heart felt heavy. He had chosen to stay with the remaining colonists, even though Commander Sanghyuk had offered him a place on the last ship. Sir, called Operator Suman, we're receiving another transmission from the alien fleet. Admiral Vexitar appeared on the screen again. His black eyes showed no emotion as he spoke. Humans of New Jeju, your time has expired. You have chosen to remain on our sacred world despite our generous warning. This defiance will not be tolerated. Admiral, Jiwoo said, we have women and children here. Many of them were born on this planet. This is the only home they know. Surely we can reach some agreement. There is no agreement with thieves and trespassers, Vextar replied. However, I am not without mercy. I will give you a demonstration of our power so you understand the futility of resistance. Perhaps then you will reconsider. The transmission ended. Jiwoo felt a chill run down his spine. In his command chamber, strategist Kelnoth made one last attempt to change his admiral's mind. Sir, I strongly advise caution, he said. My research into human history shows they become extremely dangerous when threatened. Dangerous? Vextar laughed. Look at them, Kelnoth. They're sitting helplessly on the surface while we control the skies. They have no weapons that can reach us. But sir, the intelligence gaps I mentioned— Enough, Vextar snapped. I am tired of your cowardice. These humans need to learn their place in the galactic order. Target their educational facility. A precise strike will show them our superiority without destroying the sacred artifacts. The school? Kelnoth said in horror. Sir, that building is full of children. Even better. Humans are known to be emotional about their offspring. Destroying a few young ones will break their will to resist. Down on New Jeju, Teacher Mina was trying to keep her students calm. The children were scared, but she had managed to turn their fear into curiosity by making it a science lesson. Now who can tell me what those ships in the sky are made of? She asked. Doyan raised his hand. Metal, like our tools? Very good. And how do you think they fly without wings? Rockets? Asked a little girl named Sora. Excellent thinking. Even alien technology follows the laws of physics we've learned about. The children were so focused on the lesson that they didn't notice the weapon ports opening on the ships above. In the medical center, Dr. Yuna was frantically working with the crystal network. She had discovered that the crystals responded to human emotions, especially strong ones like fear or love. When she thought about protecting the children, the crystals glowed brighter. "Computer," she said, "scan for any defensive capabilities in the crystal network." "Scanning," the computer replied. "Warning: the network contains military-grade defensive protocols. However, activation requires specific authorization codes." "What kind of authorization?" "Unknown. The codes are in a language not found in any database." Suddenly, alarms began blaring throughout the colony. Jiwoo's voice came over the speakers. "All residents take cover immediately. The alien ships are powering weapons." High above, Vextar gave the order. "Fire." A beam of pure energy lanced down from the Hegemony flagship. It struck the school with devastating precision, vaporizing the building and everything within a kilometer radius. 2,000 colonists died instantly, including 400 children. Teacher Mina had just enough time to shield Sora with her body before the world turned white. Doyen saw the beam coming and threw himself over 3 younger children, trying to protect them. In his final moments, he thought about the crystals he had found and wished they could somehow save his friends. The explosion shook the entire colony. When the light faded, there was nothing left where the school had been except a smoking crater. In the command center, Jiwoo stared at the destruction in shock. His legs gave out, and he fell to his knees. Those children had trusted him to protect them. Operator Suman was crying as she tried to work her controls. "Sir," she said through her tears, "we're picking up massive energy spikes from the crystal formations all over the planet." At the medical center, Dr. Hyuna felt the crystals react to the death of the children. Every crystal on the planet began to glow with blinding light. The ancient network was awakening fully for the first time in millions of years. "Computer," she shouted over the rising hum of energy. "What's happening?" "The crystal network is activating all defensive protocols. It appears to be responding to the threat against human children." The crystals weren't just communication devices or weapons. They were something much more sophisticated, a network designed to protect innocent life. And they had just detected the murder of 400 human children. Deep underground in the planet's core, ancient machines that had slept for eons began to power up. But these machines didn't attack the ships above. Instead, they did something far more significant. They sent a signal, not to the aliens who had built them millions of years ago, not to any known civilization in the galaxy. They sent a signal that bypassed all known physics and reached across space instantly to touch the mind of every human being in existence. On Earth, 6-year-old Park Jinwoo was playing in his backyard when the signal hit. Suddenly, he was experiencing Doyen's final moments, feeling the boy's desperate wish to protect the younger children. Jinwoo began to cry, not understanding why, but knowing that something terrible had happened to children far away. In the space stations around Mars, engineer Kim Tae-woo felt the signal and saw the school being destroyed. He dropped his tools and ran to the nearest communication terminal to call Earth Defense Command. On Luna Base, scientist Dr. Lim Hanyul felt Mina's sacrifice as she tried to save her students. She immediately began working to calculate the fastest route to the Kepler 442 system. The signal reached every human colony, every space station, every ship in the galaxy. 100 billion humans suddenly knew that aliens had murdered human children in cold blood. The reaction was immediate and terrible. On Earth, Fleet Admiral Song Yoonbi was in a meeting when the signal hit her mind. She saw Doyen's face clearly, felt his terror and his brave attempt to save the younger children. For a moment she couldn't breathe. Then she stood up and spoke one word: Omega. Every military commander in the room knew what that meant. Protocol Omega was humanity's deepest secret, the option they had hoped never to use. Within minutes, emergency broadcasts were sent to every human world. All conflicts between human nations stopped immediately. Every resource, every ship, every weapon was redirected to a single purpose. The alien Admiral Vextar had made a fatal mistake. He had assumed that killing human children would break humanity's will to resist. Instead, he had awakened something that the galaxy had never seen before: the full rage of humanity when their young were threatened. On New Jeju, the surviving colonists watched in amazement as the crystals around them began to sing. It was a beautiful, haunting melody that seemed to carry messages of hope across the stars. Dr. Hyuna realized what was happening. "The network," she whispered. "It's not just sending signals to Earth. It's telling every human in the galaxy what happened here." Captain Jiwoo picked himself up from the floor. His grief was transforming into something harder and more dangerous. He looked at the alien ships in the sky and made a promise to the children who had died. "Suman," he said in a voice like cold steel, "send a message to Admiral Vextar." "What should it say, sir?" "Tell him he's made a mistake. Tell him that humanity is coming, and tell him that we will not forget what he did to our children." High above, Vextar received the message and laughed. What could a handful of primitive humans possibly do to threaten the mighty hegemony? He was about to find out. The alien ships hung in the sky like dark clouds. Captain Jiwoo stood in the communication center trying to process what had just happened. 50,000 people looked to him for answers he didn't have. "Sir," called Operator Suman. "They're sending another message." The main screen flickered to life, showing a creature that made everyone in the room step back. It was tall and thin, with 4 arms and skin that looked like gray metal. Its eyes were large and completely black. When it spoke, its voice was cold and mechanical. "I am Admiral Vextar of the Corvani hegemony," the alien said. "This planet contains sacred artifacts of our ancestors. Your presence here is theft and will not be tolerated." Jiwoo took a deep breath and activated the response transmitter. "Admiral Vextar, this is Captain Lee Jiwoo of New Jeju Colony. We are peaceful settlers. We had no knowledge of any claim to this planet. Perhaps we can discuss this and find a solution that works for everyone." The alien admiral laughed, a sound like grinding metal. "Discuss? With barely evolved mammals? Your species has existed for what? 200,000 years? The hegemony ruled this galaxy for 10 million years before your planet even had life." Another alien appeared on the screen next to Vextar. This one was smaller and seemed nervous. "Admiral," it said quietly, "perhaps we should consider their offer to negotiate." "Silence, Kelnoth," Vextar snapped. "These humans are insects. We do not negotiate with insects." He turned back to the camera. "You have 72 hours to evacuate this planet completely. Any humans remaining after that time will be eliminated." The transmission ended, leaving the communication center in shocked silence. Commander Sang-hyuk immediately activated his emergency transmitter. "This is Commander Yoon Sang-hyuk to Earth Defense Command. New Jeju Colony is under threat from hostile alien forces. We need immediate assistance." The response came back within minutes. "Commander Sang-hyuk, this is Admiral Song Yunbi. We received your transmission. The nearest defense fleet is 6 months away. You need to evacuate the colonists immediately." 6 months, Jiwoo said. "They gave us 3 days. Sang-hyuk's face was grim. "I'll take as many people as I can in my ship, but it only holds 500. We need to contact every transport in this sector." Meanwhile, Dr. Hyuna was in her lab, studying the crystals with new urgency. If the aliens called them sacred artifacts, there had to be something special about them. Her scans showed incredibly complex patterns inside the crystal structure. "Computer," she said, "analyze the energy patterns in these crystals." "Analysis complete," the computer replied. "The patterns match theoretical designs for quantum communication networks. However, the technology required to build such a network is beyond current human capabilities." "How far beyond?" "Approximately 1,000 years beyond current human technology." Hyuna felt cold. They were living on top of technology that was impossibly advanced. No wonder the aliens wanted it back. Across the colony, families were packing their belongings and preparing to leave their homes. But many colonists, especially those with children born on New Jeju, refused to go. "This is our home," said Mrs. Kim Doyen's mother. "My son has never known any other world. How can we just abandon everything?" "We don't have a choice," Jiwoo said at the emergency town meeting. "These aliens have weapons we can't fight." "But where will we go?" asked Mr. Bang. "Earth doesn't want us back. That's why we came here in the first place. Teacher Mina stood up. What about the children who were born here? Legally, they're citizens of New Jeju, not Earth. Do they even have the right to live on Earth? The questions had no good answers. The colonists faced an impossible choice: abandon their home or face death. High above the planet, on the Hegemony flagship, strategist Kelnoth was doing research on humans. What he found worried him greatly. "Admiral," he said, entering Vextar's command chamber, "I've been studying these humans. There are some concerning details in our intelligence reports." What could possibly be concerning about such a primitive species? Vextar asked without looking up from his tactical displays. "Sir, several aggressive species have encountered humans in the past 50 years. The Zelkan Empire, the Thrax Confederation, the Mordian Collective, all of them disappeared completely after conflicts with humanity." Disappeared? What do you mean? I mean their entire civilizations no longer exist. No colonies, no ships, no survivors. The official reports say they destroyed themselves in civil wars, but the timing is suspicious. Vextar finally looked at his strategist. "Are you suggesting these pathetic farmers are dangerous?" "I'm suggesting we should be cautious, sir. Humans appear peaceful, but there may be more to them than we see." "Nonsense," Vextar said. "I've seen their ships, primitive metal boxes with chemical rockets. Their weapons are projectile-based firearms. They're children playing with toys." But Kelnoth wasn't convinced. He accessed deeper files in the Hegemony database, looking for any information about human military capabilities. What he found made his blood run cold. There were gaps, huge gaps, in the intelligence reports. Entire sections had been classified at the highest levels, and there were references to something called Protocol Omega that had no explanation at all. Down on New Jeju, the evacuation was going badly. Only 10,000 people could be transported off-world before the deadline. The rest would have to stay and hope for mercy. Doyen found Jiwoo sitting alone in the school playground staring at the alien ships in the sky. "Captain Jiwoo," the boy said, "are the bad aliens going to hurt us?" Jiwoo looked at the child who had never known fear before today. "I don't know, Doyen, but I promise we'll do everything we can to protect you and the other children. My mom says we might have to leave forever, but this is my home. I don't want to go." "I know, son. None of us want to go." That night, Huna made a breakthrough. The crystals weren't just communication devices. They were something much more powerful. They could send signals faster than light, across any distance instantly. But more importantly, they seemed to respond to human thoughts and emotions. "Jiwoo," she called on her communicator, "you need to come to the lab right away." When Jiwoo arrived, Huna showed him a crystal that was glowing brightly. "Watch this," she said, placing her hand on the crystal while thinking about Earth. Immediately, every crystal in the lab began to pulse in rhythm. "They're connected to something," she said. "Something on Earth. I think these crystals form a network that spans the entire galaxy. A network built by whom?" "I don't think it was built by the aliens up there," Huna said. "The technology is too different from their ships. I think someone else built this network long ago and then left it behind." As the deadline approached, the colonists made their final preparations. Some would leave on the transport ships. Others would hide in the underground shelters and hope to survive whatever came next. But in the deepest part of the crystal network, something was stirring. The human presence on New Jeju had awakened systems that had been sleeping for millions of years, and those systems were beginning to send signals across the galaxy. On Earth, in facilities hidden deep underground, those signals were being received. And the response they triggered would change the course of galactic history. The aliens had made one critical mistake. They assumed that because humans appeared peaceful, they were weak. They were about to learn the difference between choosing peace and being incapable of war. The 72-hour deadline was almost up, and Vextar was running out of patience with what he saw as defiant insects who refused to accept their fate. The morning sun cast long shadows across the fields of New Jeju Colony. Captain Lee Jiwoo walked slowly along the dirt path between the crops, watching the farmers start their daily work. The air smelled sweet from the purple flowers that grew on the hybrid corn plants. These plants were special. They mixed earth corn with something from this planet, making food that could feed twice as many people. Jiwoo stopped to watch Kim Doyeon run past with his friends. The 12-year-old boy had been born here on Kepler 442b. To him, this was home, not some distant colony. His laugh echoed across the fields as he chased a small blue creature that looked like a flying squirrel. The native animals were harmless and seemed to enjoy playing with the human children. "Good morning, Captain," called Choi Mina from her classroom doorway. She taught the colony's children about farming and science. Her students were already gathering around tables outside, ready to learn about soil and seeds under the open sky. "Good morning, Teacher Mina," Jiwoo replied with a smile. "The children seem happy today." "They always are," Mina said. "Yesterday, Doyeon found some interesting crystals near the old riverbed. The children want to study them." Jiwoo nodded and continued his walk. For 15 years, New Jeju had been peaceful. 50,000 people had made this planet their home. They grew food, raised families, and built a simple life far from Earth's crowded cities. There had never been any real danger here. Dr. Park Hyuna was already in her lab when Jiwoo reached the medical center. She was looking at something under her microscope, her face serious with concentration. "What are you studying, Doctor?" Jiwoo asked. "Those crystals the children found," Hyuna said without looking up. "They're not normal rocks. There's something inside them that looks almost like technology." "Technology? From where?" "I don't know. Yet. But they pulse with a very faint energy. It's almost like they're sleeping." Jiwoo felt a small worry in his stomach, but he pushed it away. They had found many strange things on this planet over the years. Most turned out to be harmless. Later, that day, Commander Yoon Sang-hyuk arrived from the spaceport. He came from Earth once every few months to check on the colony and bring supplies. His ship was small but fast, able to travel between star systems. "Any problems to report?" Sang-hyuk asked as they sat in Jiwoo's office. "Nothing serious," Jiwoo said. "Our sensors picked up some unknown ships in the outer system last week, but they didn't come close. Probably just explorers." "How many ships?" 3 or 4. They stayed near the gas giant and then left. Sang-hyuk made notes on his tablet. "I'll report it to Earth Defense. They like to know about all ship movements in this area." That evening, the colony gathered for their weekly community dinner. Families sat at long tables under string lights, sharing food and stories. Doyeon showed everyone the crystal he had found. It was about the size of his hand, clear like glass, but with swirling colors inside. "It gets warm when I hold it," Doyeon told the adults. "And sometimes I think I can hear humming inside it." "That's probably just your imagination," his father said. But Hyuna took the crystal to examine it more closely. "Actually," she said quietly, "the boy might be right. These crystals do seem to react to human touch." Old Mr. Bang, who had been one of the first settlers, shook his head. "We should leave alien things alone. This planet was peaceful before we found those rocks." "Don't worry, grandfather," Mina said gently. "We're just studying them. Knowledge is always good." As the evening went on, children played games while adults talked about crop yields and weather patterns. It was the same as every week for the past 15 years. Safe, calm, and happy. But in the communications center, something strange was happening. The night operator, Lee Suman, was picking up signals from deep space. They were faint and broken, like someone talking through static. The language was nothing she had ever heard before. She recorded the signals and marked them for Jiwoo to review in the morning. They might be important, but probably they were just space noise. Strange signals came from many places in the galaxy. The next morning, Jiwoo listened to the recordings. The sounds were definitely artificial, made by intelligent beings. But they were too broken to understand. He sent copies to Sang-hyuk and to Earth for analysis. "Should we be worried?" Suman asked. "Probably not," Jiwoo said. "Space is full of radio signals from many different species. Most of them never come near human colonies." In her lab, Huna was making a discovery that would change everything. The crystals were not just technology, they were incredibly advanced. Technology. Older than anything humans had ever seen. And they were connected to each other in a vast network that covered the entire planet. Jiwoo, she called on her communicator. You need to see this. When Jiwoo arrived at the lab, Huna showed him her computer screen. It displayed a map of the planet with thousands of glowing dots. Each dot is a crystal formation, she explained. They're everywhere, underground and on the surface, and they're all connected somehow. Connected how? I don't know yet, but when I touched one crystal with a probe, crystals on the other side of the planet reacted at the same instant. That's impossible with normal physics. Jiwoo stared at the screen. What do you think they do? I think they're some kind of communication system, built by whoever lived here before us, but we never found any ruins or signs of intelligent life. Maybe they left before we arrived, or maybe they're not gone. That afternoon, Doyen and his friends found more crystals near the school. These were bigger and glowed brighter. When Doyen touched the largest one, it pulsed with warm light and made a sound like distant music. Teacher Mina, he called excitedly. Look what they do. But Mina was looking at the sky with a worried expression. Dark shapes were moving among the clouds, getting bigger as they came closer. Children, she said calmly, let's go inside now. High above New Jeju, massive ships were dropping out of hyperspace. They were black and angular, nothing like human designs. As the colonists watched in growing fear, the alien vessels took positions around the planet. Then came the transmission. Broadcast on all frequencies in perfect Korean. Primitive humans of this world. You will surrender immediately or face the consequences. This planet belongs to the Corvani hegemony. You have 3 days to evacuate or be removed. The peaceful life of New Jeju had just ended.